Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I will not allow this country to be made weak again. I will keep America moving forward, always forward, for an endless, enduring dream and 1,000 points of light.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
My firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
Well, then the insurance would help pay for it. These are the kind of elements of a national health insurance important to the American people. Governor Reagan, again, typically is against such a proposal.
Governor, there you go again.
We're conservatives. We believe in strong moral values. We're against communist government economic regulation. We don't believe that handouts should be given to every single unmotivated stoner.
Didn't you wonder why you were getting checks for doing absolutely nothing?
I figured because the Democrats were in power again.
And we're against the United Nations, that thing where people just argue without getting anything done. And we're strong isolationists, and we believe in the status quo.
Alright, I'm a liberal, and I believe government should spend more money and raise taxes. I believe in a communist system where everyone has equal benefits over capitalism, which everyone should work hard. Also, I am pro-abortion.
James Buchanan was the greatest man our country ever had. He was the only president born in Pennsylvania and only president to never get married.
Juliana, I'm gonna stop you right there. Lincoln was a real American. He freed slaves while Buchanan sat in the White House and did nothing.
James Buchanan is arguably the worst president America has ever had, along with Andrew Johnson and Franklin Pierce, fellow Democrats. Buchanan's biggest failure was that he allowed the Union to dissolve, which later led to a civil war. He did little to act when the states started to secede from the Union, and thus the Confederate States of America came to be. He was also a racist and promoted slavery in regions such as Kansas.
On the other hand, Abe Lincoln is arguably America's greatest president, along with fellow Republican Theodore Roosevelt. Lincoln was a man who believed in hard work instead of laziness, unlike Buchanan, who simply didn't have the resolve to accomplish anything. Lincoln was a spiritual man, a man with an inspiring journey, but most importantly, Lincoln won the Civil War. He took action when action needed to be done, and he saved America.
Woodrow Wilson was a racist progressive from Virginia who waited way too long to get our country involved in World War I. But Warren G. Harding, aside from having a funny last name, he was a great man. He returned the country to a sense of normalcy after an era of violence.
Woodrow Wilson was a progressive racist from Virginia who hated African Americans. He was very democratic in the sense of how he had a communist approach to regulating economics by creating the Clayton Antitrust Act and the Federal Reserve. Wilson was also a communist in the sense that he tried to take over the entire U.S. economy with the War Industry Board. He was also the first president to criticize the Constitution and to create a propaganda department during World War I. Wilson's major last screw-up was his improper handling of the Treaty of Versailles. He refused to negotiate with the Republican Congress for ratification of the treaty, and this debacle eventually led to the rise of Adolf Hitler.
After Woodrow Wilson's reign of terror, Warren G. Harding proposed a return to normalcy as he spoke from his front porch. This promised to undo all the sadistic evils that occurred under Woodrow the racist Wilson. In this respect, Harding was as conservative as a Republican could possibly be. He supported isolationism. Harding did this by overseeing the Washington Naval Conference. This brought America and all major nations to a sense of peace after a legitimate arms reduction treaty was signed. He highly supported laissez-faire capitalism. For those of you who don't know what this is basically the government having no interference in the economic realm while businesses prosper. This led America into a period of prosperity known as the Roaring Twenties, and ultimately, Harding made the Roaring Twenties roar. There's also some stuff school probably never taught you about Warren G. Harding. Harding also created an anti-lynching bill, which at the time, Democratic governor of Texas, Lyndon Baines Johnson, heavily fought against.
LBJ was far from a good president. He lied to get what he wanted. He forced us into a war in Vietnam, which we ultimately gained nothing from and lost so much.
Well, Dwight D. Eisenhower, on the other hand, first of all, led us through World War II as the commanding general of all of our armed forces, and then became president, which had the highest taxes of all presidents, but also had the lowest national debt. And then he passed the Highway Act of 1965, which was able to stimulate the economies.
We'll forget about LBJ fighting an anti-lynch bill and simply assess him on his presidency. LBJ's key accomplishment was lying to the American public about the Gulf of Tonkin incident and unjustly getting us into the Vietnam War. As some of you may know, Vietnam is arguably the greatest failure in American foreign policy. We lost over 58,000 American soldiers because of this poor decision.
Unlike Lyndon B. Johnson, Eisenhower was a pro with foreign policy. He employed his policy of brinksmanship, which was basically not taking any crap from any communist country. Eisenhower was also an economic genius. What he did was, he had the highest taxes and lowest budget out of any president. This combination has never been seen aside from Eisenhower, and it was a genius move on his part. To help the economy even more, Eisenhower created the International Highway System, which is still used today. Lastly, Eisenhower helped push the Civil Rights Movement. What he did was, he forced 9 black children, known as the Little Rock Nine, to be integrated into an all-white school. This started the Civil Rights Movement, and it was a push that civil rights activists really needed. Eisenhower was just an amazing president, and definitely one of the best.
JFK can best be summed up like fellow Democratic President Bill Clinton.
Sexual relations.
Richard Nixon, on the other hand, believed in strong moral, traditional values.
Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
JFK was America's first pimp president, followed by Clinton. Aside from having an affair with the beautiful Marilyn Monroe, JFK did not have enough time to do anything notable before he was assassinated. JFK did mess up in respect to the civil rights movement. Instead of properly handling the movement like Eisenhower, JFK actually imprisoned civil rights activists as he felt it made his country look weak compared to the Soviets.
Richard Nixon is mostly known for Watergate, but what not a lot of people do know is the fact that Richard Nixon did a lot of good things for foreign policy. The thing that's intriguing about Nixon's administration is he focused mostly on foreign policy, and this really goes against the Republican view of isolationism. Nixon's first triumph in foreign policy was his use of détente. This was seeking peace with communist countries around the world instead of trying to blow them up. The two best examples are China and Russia. Nixon also used shuttle diplomacy with his Secretary of State Henry Kissinger to end the Yom Kippur War in the Middle East. Finally, unlike LBJ screwing the country up, Nixon finally was the person that got us out of Vietnam. Nixon also greatly helped the environment by creating the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA for short.
Jimmy Carter was a mediocre president, to say the least.
Say Pros America right now. This is America on Jimmy Carter.
Oh God.
Bang, bang, bang! Bang, bang, bang!
The past few days, when I've been at that window upstairs, I've thought a bit of the shining city upon a hill. The phrase comes from John Winthrop, who wrote it to describe the America he imagined. What he imagined was important because he was an early pilgrim, an early freedom man. He journeyed here on what today we'd call a little wooden boat. And like the other pilgrims, he was looking for a home that would be free. I've spoken of the shining city all my political life, but I don't know if I ever quite communicated what I saw when I said it. But in my mind, it was a tall, proud city built on rocks stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds living in harmony and peace. A city with free ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here. That's how I saw it and see it still. And how stands the city on this winter night? More prosperous, more secure, and happier than it was 8 years ago. But more than that, after 200 years, 2 centuries, she still stands strong and true on the granite ridge, and her glow is held steady, no matter what storm.
Lyndon Johnson told the nation, have no fear of escalation. I am trying everyone to please. Though it isn't really war, we're sending 50,000 more to help save Vietnam from Vietnam.